The alarm rang through the command station like a scream in the night. High Commander Velthar's 4 eyes widened as red lights flashed across every screen in the control room. His scales turned a darker shade of blue, something that only happened when he felt true fear. "Report!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. A young officer stumbled over his words. "Commander, we have a breach." Sector 7. Something came through the border shields. Velthar felt his blood run cold. The border shields had protected the Viridian Empire for over 2,000 years. Nothing could break through them. Nothing had ever tried. The Empire ruled 12 species across 10,000 star systems. They were the strongest force in the known galaxy. "What kind of ship?" Velthar demanded, moving closer to the main display screen. The officer's hands shook as he typed commands into his console. "Unknown, sir. The computer cannot identify it. The ship's design matches nothing in our database." Another officer called out from across the room. "Sir, the vessel is small. Frigate class. But the material. Our sensors cannot recognize the metal, and the energy signature is completely foreign." Velthar stared at the screen. A small dot moved slowly through Sector 7, seemingly unconcerned about the Empire's most protected space. He had served the Empire for 60 years. He had fought in the border wars. He had commanded fleets against pirates and rebels. But this was different. This was impossible. "Send a message to Fleet Admiral Cross," Velthar ordered. Within minutes, the emergency protocols activated across 17 star systems. Warning signals went out to every military station. Defense platforms powered up their weapons. Thousands of ships began moving into position. The Empire's war machine, dormant for decades, roared back to life. On the bridge of the Terra's Hope, Captain Daehyun sat in his command chair and watched the alien ships gather around him. He had expected this. In fact, he had planned for it. "How many ships?" he asked calmly. Lieutenant Hana checked her console. 47 and counting, Captain. They're surrounding us from all sides." Daehyun nodded slowly. His dark eyes showed no fear, only calculation. He had been through worse. Much worse. Hana turned to look at him. She had served with Daehyun for 5 years, and she still could not always read him. "Captain, they could destroy us in seconds." "They could try," Daehyun replied with a small smile. "But they won't. They're curious. Fear makes people curious." Down in the engine room, Minho wiped sweat from his forehead. The chief engineer had been monitoring the alien scanning attempts for the past 10 minutes. Every time their sensors tried to penetrate the Terra's Hope, his custom-built jamming system blocked them. It was not perfect, but it worked. "How's our power holding up?" Daehyun's voice came through the speaker. Minho checked his displays. "Stable, Captain. The reactor is running at 60%. I can give you full power if you need it." "Not yet," Daehyun said. "Let them wonder what we're capable of." On the Empire flagship, Fleet Admiral Cross studied the strange vessel on his screen. He was old, even by his species standards. His gray skin showed the scars of 100 battles. His 6 arms moved with practiced efficiency as he examined every piece of data. "They're blocking our scans," his science officer reported. "Whatever technology they're using, it's beyond our current capabilities." Cross felt a chill run through him. The Empire had the best technology in the galaxy. They had absorbed the knowledge of 12 different species. How could this small ship block their sensors? "Try hailing them again," Cross ordered. "All frequencies." The communications officer shook her head. "No response, Admiral. They're receiving our signals, but they're not answering." Cross made a decision. "Prepare a boarding party. If they won't talk, we'll go to them." But before he could give the final order, a voice came through the speakers. It spoke in perfect galactic standard, the common language of the Empire. "This is Captain Daehyun of the vessel Terra's Hope. We hear you. We have been hearing you since you first tried to contact us." Every being on the flagship's bridge froze. The voice was calm, almost amused. "We apologize for the intrusion into your space," Daehyun continued. But we need to talk. It's important. More important than you can imagine. Cross leaned forward. This is Fleet Admiral Cross of the Viridian Empire. You have violated our borders. Our law requires your immediate surrender. There was a pause. Then Daehyun spoke again. Admiral, we come in peace, but we will not surrender. We cannot. Too much depends on what happens next. Then you leave us no choice, Cross said, his voice hard. Admiral, wait, Daehyun said quickly. Look at your long-range sensors, Sector 9. Tell me what you see. Cross gestured to his science officer, who immediately began scanning. Seconds passed. Then minutes. The officer's face turned pale. Admiral, she whispered. There's something there. Something big. Moving toward us. Cross felt his heart beat faster. What is it? I don't know, sir. But it's massive, and there are thousands of them. On the Terra's Hope, Daehyun stood up from his chair. Now, do you want to talk, Admiral? Velthar watched from the command station as the situation developed. His advisors argued behind him. Some wanted to destroy the unknown ship. Others wanted to capture it, but Velthar made his own decision. Tell Admiral Cross to bring them in, he ordered. We need to know what they know. 30 minutes later, Daehyun, Hana, and a security officer named Jinwoo materialized on the Empire flagship. They wore simple gray uniforms and carried no visible weapons. The aliens surrounding them stared in shock. Humans looked like a combination of several extinct species from the Empire's ancient history. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. Simple and efficient, but there was something in their eyes that made the aliens nervous. These beings had seen things, terrible things. Admiral Cross stepped forward. He towered over Daehyun, nearly twice his size. I am Fleet Admiral Cross. You will explain yourself. Daehyun bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. Thank you for seeing us, Admiral. My name is Daehyun. This is Lieutenant Hana and Officer Jinwoo. We come from a region of space your people call the Dead Zone. Murmurs spread through the room. The Dead Zone was a vast area of space that the Empire had declared uninhabitable 5,000 years ago. Stellar phenomena had made it impossible for life to survive there. Impossible, Velthar said from the communication screen. Nothing can live in that region. Daehyun's expression did not change. We adapted. We survived. And for the last 50 years, we've been watching you. The room exploded in angry voices. The idea that primitives had been spying on the Empire was insulting. But Cross raised a hand for silence. Why are you here? He demanded. Daehyun's face became serious. Because something is coming, Admiral. Something that has been chasing us for 3 generations. We call it the Void Swarm. It destroys everything in its path, and according to our calculations, it will reach your borders in 3 days. The silence that followed was absolute. Cross stared at the human, trying to determine if this was a lie, or a threat, or something worse. If what you say is true, Cross said slowly, why should we believe you? Why would you warn us? Daehyun met his gaze without flinching. Because, Admiral, we're tired of running. We're tired of watching worlds burn. And because if you fall, we have nowhere left to go. The swarm will consume everything. He paused. Unless we stop it together. The council chamber was full of angry voices. 12 species, each represented by their finest leaders, argued with each other about the humans. Some wanted them thrown out of Empire space. Others wanted them imprisoned. A few wanted them studied like laboratory specimens. High Commander Velthar sat at the head of the long table and let them argue. He had seen the long-range sensor data himself. Something was out there. Something massive. Whether it was the void swarm the humans spoke of, or some other threat, it required investigation. Silence. Velthar finally commanded. His voice echoed through the chamber, and the arguing stopped. We will send reconnaissance ships to verify the humans' claims. Until then, they remain our guests. Guests? Senator Vex Moore hissed. His species, the Threxians, were known for their suspicious nature. They invaded our space. They spied on us for 50 years. They should be executed. Executed for warning us? Velthar replied coldly. Perhaps you would prefer we ignored their warning and waited to see if they were right. Vexmore's face twisted in anger, but he said nothing more. On the other side of the flagship, Daehyun, Hana, and Jinwoo waited in a locked room. It was comfortable enough, with beds and food, but they all knew it was a prison cell with nice furniture. Do you think they believed us? Jinwoo asked. He was young, only 25, and this was his first mission beyond human-controlled space. Daehyun sat on one of the beds and closed his eyes. It doesn't matter if they believe us. The swarm doesn't care about belief. It just comes. Hana stood by the door, listening. Captain, I've been counting footsteps. 20 guards outside. Heavy weapons. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong, Daehyun interrupted. We knew this would be difficult. We planned for it. Back on the Terra's Hope, Minho was having the time of his life. While the diplomatic meeting happened above, he had been studying the Empire's technology from his ship. What he discovered both impressed and worried him. The Empire's technology was sophisticated. Their energy systems were efficient. Their materials were strong. But it was all old. Very old. Nothing he saw showed any real innovation from the past 1,000 years. They had reached a peak and stopped climbing. They became comfortable, Minho muttered to himself. They stopped pushing forward. His console beeped. An incoming signal. He opened it and found himself looking at a young alien scientist. She had golden skin and bright green eyes. Her species was one Minho didn't recognize. Hello, she said in accented galactic standard. My name is Suman. I'm a research scientist with the Empire's Technology Division. Minho blinked. How did you get this channel? Suman smiled. I built a bypass around the security protocols. I wanted to talk to you. Your ship. It's fascinating. The way you've integrated so many different systems. The adaptive energy routing. The quantum-locked hull plating. None of this is in our databases. For the first time in hours, Minho smiled. You actually understand what you're looking at. I'm trying to, Sumin admitted. Can you tell me about your propulsion system? The energy signature suggests some kind of modified quantum drive. But the efficiency rates are impossible, according to our physics. Minho laughed. Your physics assumed stable conditions. We lived in the dead zone. Nothing was stable. We had to adapt or die. They talked for over an hour. Suman asked questions, and Minho answered when he could. He found himself enjoying the conversation. It had been a long time since he talked to someone who understood engineering at his level. Meanwhile, the reconnaissance ships returned early. They came back damaged. Their hulls scarred with burns that the crew couldn't explain. The captain of the lead ship was immediately brought before Admiral Cross. Report, Cross demanded. The captain was shaking. Admiral, the humans were right. There's something out there. We got close enough to see it before we had to retreat. Ships. Admiral. Millions of them. But they're not ships like ours. They're alive. Biological vessels that move like a swarm of insects. Cross felt his blood turn to ice. How far away? At their current speed, they'll reach our outer territories in 2 days. Not 3. 2. The news spread through the flagship like fire. Within hours, every being in the Empire knew the truth. The void swarm was real. And it was coming. Daehyun was pulled from his cell and brought back to the council chamber. This time, the room was silent. Every leader stared at him with new eyes. Not the eyes of captors looking at a prisoner, but the eyes of the desperate looking at someone who might have answers. You knew, Velthar said quietly. You knew exactly what was coming. Daehyun nodded. We've fought them before. Many times. We've lost more than you can imagine. Then tell us how to fight them, Admiral Cross said. Tell us how to win. Daehyun's expression was grave. Admiral, we've never won. We've only survived. There's a difference. The room fell into a heavier silence. What do you mean? Velthar asked. Daehyun walked to the large display screen and pulled up star maps from his data device. The aliens watched as he showed them system after system, all marked in red. These were human worlds, Daehyun said. 53 colonies. 7 billion people. All gone. The swarm consumed them over 30 years. We evacuated who we could. We fought when we had to. We ran when we couldn't fight. And we learned. Hana stepped forward. We learned that the swarm doesn't think like we do. It doesn't have diplomacy. It doesn't negotiate. It just spreads and consumes. But it can be slowed. It can be hurt. And if you hit it hard enough in the right places, pieces of it will die. But never all of it, Jinwoo added. It always survives. It always adapts. Vexmore stood up, his face twisted in anger. So you brought this plague to our doorstep. You led them here. No, Daehyun said firmly. We didn't lead them anywhere. The swarm doesn't follow. It expands. It was always going to reach you eventually. We just got here first to give you a chance. A chance to do what? Velthar asked. Daehyun turned to face him directly. A chance to prepare. A chance to adapt your strategy. A chance to survive. He paused. But only if you're willing to work with us. Why should we trust you? Senator Vexmore demanded. Because, Daehyun said simply. We don't want to run anymore. We're tired. Our people are tired. We've been fleeing for 3 generations. Our children have never known a real home. They've only known the inside of ships and temporary stations. His voice grew stronger. We came to you because we hoped to find allies. Because we believed that together, maybe, we could actually stop this thing instead of just running from it. Admiral Cross studied the human carefully. You said Terra's Hope was a scout ship. Is that true? Daehyun smiled slightly. Not exactly, Admiral. Terra's Hope is the vanguard. Behind her, hidden in the dark space between stars, are 47 colony ships, 2.3 million humans, all of them ready to fight, all of them ready to help. If you'll let us. The room erupted in shocked voices. 2 million humans? Here? In their space? Velthar raised his hand for silence again. Captain Daehyun, you say you've been fighting the swarm for 30 years. In that time, what have you learned? We learned that traditional military tactics don't work, Daehyun replied. The swarm doesn't care about formations or battle lines. It overwhelms through numbers. We learned to be flexible, to hit and run, to use the environment as a weapon. To make every ship, every person, a threat that the swarm can't ignore. Guerrilla warfare. Hana added. We learned from Earth's old military histories. When facing a superior enemy, you don't fight fair. You fight smart. Cross leaned back in his chair. His long military career had taught him to recognize truth when he heard it. These humans had experience the Empire lacked. And in 2 days, that experience might be the difference between survival and extinction. What do you need from us? Cross asked. Daehyun took a deep breath. First, release my crew and my ship. Second, let us bring in our fleet. Third, give us access to your military command structure. And fourth, he looked around the room at all the alien faces. Trust us. We know what's coming. We know how it fights. And we know how to make it bleed. Velthar looked at his advisors. He saw fear in their eyes, but also hope. Finally, he made his decision. Very well, Captain. You and your people are free. Bring your fleet. We have 2 days to prepare. He stood up, his full height making him tower over everyone in the room. But know this. If you betray us, if this is some kind of trick, the Empire will hunt your people across every star in the galaxy. Daehyun met his gaze evenly. Understood, Commander. But we're not your enemy. The swarm is. And it's almost here. The human fleet emerged from hiding like ghosts materializing in the darkness. One by one, 47 ships appeared on Empire sensors, but they weren't the sleek military vessels the Empire expected. They were colony ships, massive, worn vessels that had been converted into something between a home and a warship. Admiral Cross stared at the display screen in his command center. These are their warships? Captain Dae-hyun stood beside him, watching his people arrive. No, Admiral. These are our survivors. But every survivor among us is also a fighter. We had to be. The Empire fleet numbered over 600 ships. Massive battle cruisers with weapons that could destroy planets. Carriers full of fighter craft. Destroyers designed for close combat. It was the largest military force the Empire had assembled in 200 years. But as the reports came in from the outer territories, everyone knew it might not be enough. The swarm has entered Sector 9, a young officer reported. 5 planets. All gone. The entire population. Consumed. The silence in the command center was heavy. 5 planets. Billions of beings. Gone in less than 12 hours. Senator Vexas Moore stood in the corner, his arms crossed. He had argued against accepting human help, but the High Commander had overruled him. Now he watched the preparations with suspicion in his eyes. Perhaps they brought this plague on purpose, he muttered to his aide. Perhaps this is an invasion disguised as rescue, but not everyone shared his doubts. In the training facilities, Empire soldiers watched in amazement as human instructors demonstrated their combat techniques. Lieutenant Hana moved through the training room like water flowing around rocks. She was smaller than every Empire soldier there. But when she demonstrated close-quarters combat, 3 large warriors ended up on the floor in less than 10 seconds. Size doesn't matter when you know where to strike, she explained, helping one of them up. The swarm's bioships have weak points, their coordination nodes, their feeding tubes. Learn to find them fast, hit them hard, and get out. An Empire tactical officer named Tae watched with interest. He had spent 20 years in the military, and he had never seen anyone move like that. After the demonstration, he approached Hana. "Lieutenant, can you teach me that?" he asked. Hana looked him up and down. He was tall, with blue skin, and 6 arms. Different body structure. But she could work with that. "You willing to learn?" "Yes." "Then we start now. No breaks, no complaints." Tae smiled. "Good. I don't like breaks anyway." In the engineering sections, Minho and Sumin worked together on a problem that had stumped Empire scientists for weeks. The swarm ships had shields that adapted to weapons fire. Hit them with energy weapons, and the shields adjusted. Hit them with projectiles, and the shields strengthened. "We need something they can't adapt to," Sumin said, staring at the data. Minho rubbed his tired eyes. They had been working for 16 hours straight. "What if we don't give them time to adapt?" "What do you mean?" Minho pulled up a schematic on the screen. "Look at this. The swarm shields take approximately 2.3 seconds to adjust to new frequencies. What if we built a weapon that shifts frequencies faster than that? Keep them guessing. Never give them time to lock on to one signature." Sumin's eyes widened. "A frequency disruption weapon. The theory is sound, but we'd need massive power output, more than any single ship could generate. Then we network the ships," Minho said. "Link their power cores together. Turn the fleet into one giant weapon system." Sumin was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "That's crazy. It might destabilize the power grids. It could overload the systems, but it might work," Minho said. "It might work," she agreed. "Let me talk to the Engineering Council. We'll need authorization to modify the entire fleet." While engineers worked on weapons and soldiers trained for combat, Captain Dae-hyun met privately with High Commander Velthar. They sat in a small room, just the two of them, speaking honestly for the first time. "Tell me about Earth," Velthar said. "Your homeworld." Dae-hyun's face became distant. Earth was beautiful. Blue oceans, green forests, cities that reached into the sky. It was everything a world should be. The swarm found it 8 years ago. We evacuated everyone we could, 3 billion people, but 5 billion couldn't get out in time. Daehyun's voice was steady, but Velthar could hear the pain beneath it. I was on the last ship to leave orbit. I watched my world burn, watched the swarm cover it like a disease. By the time we jumped to FTL, there was nothing left but a dead rock covered in biomatter. Velthar was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, Daehyun said. Be ready, because that's what's coming for your worlds if we fail. You mentioned you lost family. Daehyun nodded slowly. My wife, my daughter. They were in the southern continent when the swarm arrived. I couldn't reach them in time. The communications went dead. And then... He stopped, taking a breath. I've spent the last 8 years making sure no one else loses what I lost. That's why we're here. That's why we'll fight. Velthar studied the human. He had commanded armies. He had sent soldiers to die. But he had never lost a world. He had never watched his civilization burn. This human had, and yet he still fought, still hoped. Your people, Velthar said. They've been through something no species should endure. Yet you still offer to help us. Why? Daehyun met his gaze. Because running gets tiring, Commander. Because watching worlds die gets old. And because maybe, just maybe, if we stand together, we can actually win for once. The first contact with the swarm happened 36 hours before the main fleet was expected. A small swarm scout force, maybe 200 bioships, entered Empire territory near a mining station. The station's garrison, a small defense fleet of 15 ships, engaged immediately. It was a slaughter. The swarm ships moved like living things, dodging and weaving through fire. They latched onto Empire vessels and started dissolving their hulls with acidic compounds. Send a distress signal. The garrison commander screamed as his ship shook from impacts. We need reinforcements. The message reached Admiral Cross minutes later. He immediately ordered a response force. But before he could deploy, Daehyun stepped forward. Admiral, let us handle this. We know how they fight. Cross hesitated. The Empire had never relied on others in battle. But the reports from the garrison were growing more desperate. Very well, he said. Show us what you can do. 4 human colony ships, modified for combat, jumped into the battle zone. They were led by Hana, who had transferred to the colony ship New Haven to command the operation. All ships, this is Hana. Remember your training. Hit and run. No extended engagements. Target their coordination nodes. The human ships moved differently than Empire vessels. They didn't try to match the swarm's movements. Instead, they used the environment. One ship flew into a debris field, drawing swarm ships after it, then used the debris as cover to fire on their weak points. Another ship, commanded by Jinwoo, used its engines to superheat a cloud of ice particles, creating a thermal screen that confused the swarm's sensors. While they were blind, he struck at their flanks. On Cross's command screen, the battle unfolded like nothing he had ever seen. The humans didn't fight with honor or formation. They fought dirty. They used tricks. They exploited every weakness. And it worked. Within an hour, the swarm scouts were destroyed or fleeing. The garrison was saved. Only 2 human ships had taken damage, and both were already repairing themselves. Incredible, Cross muttered, watching the tactical replay. Beside him, Tae nodded. They fight like hunters, not warriors. They make the enemy come to them, then strike when the moment is right. But not everyone was impressed. Senator Vex's Moore approached Cross with anger on his face. This is not how civilized species conduct warfare, he shouted. They fight like cowards. Hiding, running, using tricks. Cross turned to him slowly. Senator, they fight to survive. And right now, their way of fighting just saved 15 Empire ships and 1,000 lives. I'd rather be a live coward than a dead hero. Vexmore's face turned darker, but he said nothing more. Back on the New Haven, Hana checked her crew's status. Minor injuries, but everyone was alive. She opened a channel to the Terra's Hope, where Daehyun was monitoring from the command ship. Captain, the operation was successful. Minimal casualties. Good work, Hana. How did they fight? Exactly as we expected. Numbers and aggression. No strategy. Just overwhelming force. But they're scouts. The main fleet will be different. More coordinated. More dangerous. I know, Dahyun said. How are the Empire forces handling it? Hana looked out her viewport at the Empire ships, regrouping nearby. Mixed reactions. Some are impressed. Others think we're dishonorable. But they're learning. Tae, that tactical officer I've been training, he's adapting fast. There might be hope for them yet. There better be, Dahyun replied. Because in 30 hours, the real battle begins. Deep in space, beyond the range of even the best Empire sensors, the main swarm fleet approached. Millions of bioships, each one a nightmare of organic technology and predatory instinct. They moved as one massive organism, consuming everything in their path. At the center of the swarm, the largest bioships pulsed with coordination signals. They directed the lesser ships, organized the attacks, adapted to resistance. The swarm had destroyed 1,000 civilizations. It had consumed countless worlds. And now it sensed a new source of food ahead, the Empire, rich with life, full of organic material, ripe for harvest. The swarm didn't think in words or concepts. It didn't hate or love. It simply existed to spread and consume. But if it could think, it might have wondered about the strange new signals it detected alongside the Empire's fleet. Signals from ships that smelled of survival and desperation. Signals from a species that had learned to fight back. 20 hours before the swarm's arrival, Captain Dae-hyun stood before the combined military council. Around him sat the Empire's greatest military minds and the human fleet commanders. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. We need to evacuate the outer worlds, Dae-hyun said simply. The room erupted in angry voices. Admiral Cross raised his hand for silence, but it took several minutes for the noise to die down. Senator Vexmore stood up, his face twisted in rage. Evacuate? You want us to abandon our people? Our territory? This is cowardice. This is survival. Dae-hyun replied calmly. Every world you try to defend is a world the swarm will consume. Your forces will be scattered. Your ships destroyed. Your people killed. Or, he paused, looking around the room. You can pull back, evacuate everyone you can, and create a defensive position where we actually have a chance. The Empire does not run from battle, another council member said proudly. Hana stepped forward. Then, the Empire will die. We've tried defending worlds. We've lost 37 colonies that way. You cannot protect everything. The swarm will find the weakest point and flood through. High Commander Velthar had been silent throughout the argument. Now he spoke. And everyone listened. Captain Dae-hyun, explain your strategy. Dae-hyun activated a holographic display showing the Empire's territory. Here's what we know. The swarm doesn't think strategically. It simply spreads toward the nearest source of organic material. We can use that against them. He highlighted a series of systems. We evacuate these 12 outer worlds. All civilians. All resources. Everything portable comes with us. Everything else, we destroy. Destroy our own worlds? Someone gasped. Better we destroy them than leave resources for the swarm, Jinwoo said. Anything they absorb makes them stronger. Dae-hyun continued. Once evacuated, we create a corridor. A path that leads the swarm exactly where we want them to go. We'll line this corridor with automated defenses, traps, and obstacles. Every step they take costs them. Every system they enter bleeds them. And at the end of this corridor, he highlighted a binary star system. We wait for them, the entire fleet, every ship, every weapon, united. Admiral Cross studied the map carefully. His military training told him this was dangerous. His instinct told him it was necessary. How long would evacuation take? 18 hours if we start now, Dae-hyun replied. We'll use both human and Empire ships. Priority goes to civilians. Everything else is secondary. The debate continued for 2 more hours. Some council members refused to abandon territory. Others saw the logic in Daehyun's plan. Finally, Velthar made the decision. We evacuate. Admiral Cross, coordinate with Captain Daehyun. Begin immediately. Senator Vexmore stood up and stormed out of the room, but no one stopped him. The evacuation was chaos. 12 worlds, billions of people, all needing transport within hours. Human colony ships, designed to carry large populations, proved invaluable. They could pack in civilians far more efficiently than Empire vessels. On the world of Taraxis Prime, a human medic named Bora organized the medical evacuation. She moved through the refugee camps, training Empire medical staff in emergency protocols. You can't save everyone, she told a young Empire doctor who was panicking. But you can save some. Focus on those you can help. Leave the critical cases for later if you must. The doctor looked horrified. That's cruel. That's survival, Bora replied. I've done this 6 times before on human worlds. Believe me, if you try to save everyone, you'll save no one. In orbit, Minho and Suman worked desperately to complete their weapon network. They had 18 hours to link 600 ships into one coordinated power grid. It was supposed to be impossible. It's not working, Suman said, frustrated. The power fluctuations are too unstable. If we activate this, it could destroy half the fleet. Minho stared at the equations on his screen. He had been awake for 40 hours straight. His eyes burned. His hands shook from exhaustion. But he couldn't stop. What if we use buffer ships? He said suddenly. Small vessels that regulate the power flow between the larger ships. They absorb the fluctuations. Suman's eyes widened. That could work. But the buffer ships would take enormous stress. They might not survive the weapon's activation. Then we use automated ships, Minho said. No crew, just AI systems managing the power flow. They worked through the night. By morning, they had a prototype. It wasn't perfect. It was dangerous. But it might work. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Hana and Officer Tae prepared the military forces for the coming battle. They divided the fleet into strike groups, each with a mix of human and Empire ships. Your Empire fights in formations, Hana explained to the gathered commanders. Tight groups. Coordinated fire. That won't work against the swarm. They'll surround you and tear you apart. Then how do we fight? A commander asked. Like this. Hana activated a simulation. It showed small groups of ships moving independently, striking at different points, then retreating before the swarm could respond. Hit and run. Never stay in one place. Always move. Always adapt. Tae watched the simulation and understood. You fight like water. The swarm is like a rock. Water doesn't try to break the rock. It flows around it, finds the cracks, and exploits them. Exactly, Hana said, impressed. You're learning fast. I have a good teacher, Tae replied. The first swarm ships arrived at the outer worlds 14 hours later. They found empty planets. No people, no resources. Just abandoned cities and stripped facilities. The swarm ships searched, confused by the lack of prey. Then they detected the next system. More life signs, more food. They moved forward, following the trail the Empire had left for them. They're taking the bait, Daehyun said, watching the sensor screens. Admiral Cross stood beside him on the flagship's bridge. This had better work, Captain. We've abandoned 12 worlds based on your strategy. It will work, Daehyun said. But inside, he felt the old familiar fear. He had been wrong before. He had lost worlds before. But this time, there was nowhere left to run. The swarm moved through the corridor, system by system. Each world they entered was a trap. Automated defense platforms opened fire from hidden positions. Mines drifted in the debris fields, exploding when swarm ships got too close. Chemical clouds burned through their organic hulls. But the swarm didn't stop. For every ship destroyed, 10 more pushed forward. They adapted to each trap, learned from each ambush. The corridor was slowing them down. but not stopping them. On the human colony ship Morningstar, families gathered in the main halls. They had been through evacuations before, too many times. The children no longer cried. They had learned to be quiet, to be brave, to wait. An older man named Gyuri sat with his granddaughter. She was only 6 years old. She had never seen Earth. She had only known ships and temporary stations. "Grandfather, will we have a home after this?" she asked. Gyuri wanted to lie, to tell her everything would be fine. But he had learned that lies didn't help. "I don't know, little one. But we'll survive. We always do. Because we're strong? Because we're human," Gyuri said. "And humans don't give up." 48 hours after the evacuation began, the swarm reached the final system. The binary stars cast strange shadows across space, creating zones of intense heat and deep cold. It was a navigator's nightmare. It was also the perfect battlefield. The combined fleet waited. 600 Empire ships, 47 human colony ships modified for war, all of them linked by Minho and Sumin's power network. All of them ready. Admiral Cross gave the order. All ships to battle positions. Activate defensive screens. Charge weapons. Daehyun opened a channel to every ship in the fleet, human and alien alike. "This is Captain Daehyun. In a few minutes, you're going to see something terrible. The swarm doesn't look like ships. It looks like a wave of death. Some of you will want to run. Don't. Some of you will want to charge forward. Don't. Follow your training. Trust your squad mates. And remember, every swarm ship you destroy is one less ship that can hurt the people we're protecting." He paused, then added, "3 generations of humans have fought this enemy. We've lost so much. But we've learned how to survive. Today, we're not just surviving. Today, we're fighting back. For every world we've lost, for every person we couldn't save. Today, we make the swarm regret the day it decided to consume humanity." Through the viewports, they could see it coming. A massive wave of bioships, stretching across the horizon of space. Millions of them, maybe tens of millions. More than sensors could accurately count. The swarm had arrived. Hana stood on the bridge of the New Haven, watching the approaching nightmare. Beside her, Tae checked his weapons one last time. "Scared?" she asked. "Terrified," Tae admitted. "You? Always," Hana said. "But fear keeps you sharp. Fear keeps you alive." On the Empire flagship, Velthar looked at the tactical display. The numbers were overwhelming. Even with the humans' help, victory seemed impossible. But then he looked at Daehyun, standing calmly at his station. The human's face showed no fear, only determination. "Captain," Velthar said, "what do you really think our chances are?" Daehyun smiled slightly. "Commander, in every battle I've fought against the swarm, the odds were impossible. And yet, I'm still here. So are my people. Know why? Why? Because impossible is just another word for difficult, and humans have gotten very good at difficult." Admiral Cross raised his hand. "All ships, prepare to engage." The swarm crashed into the fleet like a wave hitting a cliff. The battle for the galaxy had begun. The first wave hit like a hammer against stone. Thousands of swarm bioships crashed into the defensive line, their organic weapons spraying acid and bioplasma. Empire shields flared bright as they absorbed the impacts. "Strike Group Delta, move to intercept," Admiral Cross commanded. "Strike Group Gamma, flank position." But the swarm didn't fight like any enemy the Empire had faced before. They didn't maintain formation. They didn't follow tactical patterns. They simply surged forward, overwhelming through sheer numbers. "We're taking heavy casualties on the left flank," an officer reported. Daehyun was already moving. "Human strike groups 4 through 7. Support the left flank. Use dispersal pattern Theta." The human ships moved like dancers through the chaos. They didn't try to match the swarm's numbers. Instead, they created confusion. One ship would draw swarm vessels away from the main battle. Another would strike from an unexpected angle. A third would use the binary star's radiation to mask its approach. On the New Haven, Hana commanded her group with calm precision. Target their coordination nodes. Don't waste shots on the small ones. Kill the big ones, and the small ones lose direction. Her weapons officer fired a precise burst into a massive swarm bioship. The creature shuddered and died. And immediately, the smaller ships around it began moving erratically, confused without their coordinator. "It works," Tay shouted from his position on an Empire cruiser. He had been watching Hana's tactics and now implemented them with his own ships. "All Empire vessels in Sector 7, target the large bioships first." The battle raged for hours. Space became a storm of fire and destruction. Ships on both sides fell, burning and breaking apart. The swarm lost thousands of vessels, but thousands more pushed forward to replace them. On the Terra's Hope, engineer Minho monitored the power network he and Suman had built. The stress on the system was enormous. Several buffer ships had already overloaded and been destroyed, but the network held. "Suman, how much longer can we maintain this?" he asked through the communication link. Suman's voice came back, strained but steady. "Maybe 2 more hours. After that, the system will start failing. We'll lose ships to power overloads. Then we use the weapon now," Minho decided. "While we still can." He opened a channel to Admiral Cross. "Admiral, the frequency disruption weapon is ready, but we can only fire it once. After that, the power network will collapse." Cross looked at the tactical display. The swarm was still pushing forward. They had destroyed 30% of the swarm fleet, but that still left millions of bioships. One shot wouldn't be enough, unless they timed it perfectly. "Captain Daehyun," Cross said, "we need to draw them in. All of them. One concentrated mass." Daehyun understood immediately. "You want to use us as bait?" "Yes." Daehyun looked at the display. It was a desperate plan. Suicidal, even. But it might work. "All human ships," he broadcast. "Fall back to position Alpha. Make it look like we're retreating." The human vessels began pulling back, and the swarm, sensing weakness, surged forward to pursue them. More and more bioships concentrated on the human fleet, leaving the Empire vessels with room to maneuver. "They're taking the bait," Hana reported. "But Captain, we're getting overwhelmed here." "Hold position," Daehyun ordered, watching the swarm mass grow larger on his sensors. Just a little longer. On the human colony ships, civilians watched through viewports as the battle unfolded. They saw the swarm surrounding their protectors. They saw ships burning, friends dying. Old Gyuri held his granddaughter close. "Don't look," he whispered. But he couldn't look away himself. The swarm pressed closer. Human ships began taking critical damage. The New Haven's shields dropped to 20%. Several smaller vessels exploded under the assault. "Captain," Hana's voice was desperate now. "We can't hold much longer." Daehyun watched the tactical display. Almost all of the swarm fleet was now concentrated in one area, pursuing the humans. It was now or never. "Admiral Cross, fire the weapon. Now." Cross gave the command. "All ships, activate frequency disruption weapon." Across the fleet, 600 Empire ships linked their power cores together. Energy flowed through the network, building, concentrating, growing stronger. The buffer ships between them glowed white-hot as they absorbed the power fluctuations. Then the weapon fired. A wave of constantly shifting electromagnetic energy exploded outward from the fleet. It washed over the swarm like invisible fire. The bioships' shields, designed to adapt to specific frequencies, couldn't adjust. The energy burned through them, disrupting their organic systems, short-circuiting their coordination networks. Millions of swarm ships convulsed and died in seconds. Their organic technology, so effective against conventional weapons, had no defense against something that never stayed the same frequency for more than a microsecond. The wave expanded outward, and in its wake, the swarm fleet simply ceased to function. Dead bioships drifted in space, their bodies already beginning to decay, but the weapon came at a cost. Across the Empire fleet, Buffer ships exploded from power overload. Several larger vessels lost their power cores entirely, and on the Terra's Hope, Minho watched his displays go dark as the network collapsed. "It's done," he said quietly. "The network's dead." Suman's voice came through, filled with exhaustion and relief. "But so is the swarm. Look at the sensors." Minho pulled up what few sensors still worked. Where millions of bioships had been moments before, now there was only debris and dying creatures. 60% of the swarm fleet had been destroyed in a single shot, but 40% remained. And they were adapting. "The remaining ships are changing their shields," a sensor officer reported. "They're compensating for the frequency weapon. Then we fight them the old way," Admiral Cross said grimly. "All ships, engage at will." The battle resumed, but now the odds had changed. The swarm was no longer overwhelming. The combined fleet had room to maneuver. Human tactics and Empire firepower worked together, each supporting the other. Hana's strike group targeted the large coordinator bioships. Tei's group protected her flanks. Jinwu led boarding parties onto damaged swarm vessels, planting explosives and destroying them from within. Bora and her medical teams worked desperately to save the wounded. Hour by hour, the swarm was pushed back. Their numbers dwindled. Their coordination broke down. And for the first time in 3 generations, humans saw the swarm retreat. "They're fleeing," an officer shouted in disbelief. "Pursue them?" another asked. "No," Daehyun said firmly. "Let them go. We've won enough for today." Admiral Cross agreed. "All ships, hold position. Begin rescue operations for damaged vessels." Across the fleet, humans and aliens alike collapsed in exhaustion. The battle had lasted 18 hours. Nearly half the fleet had been destroyed or damaged. Casualties numbered in the hundreds of thousands, but they had survived. High Commander Velthar appeared on the communication screens, his face showing exhaustion but also something else. "Respect to all ships," he broadcast. "Today, we faced annihilation. Today, we stood together against an enemy that has destroyed countless civilizations. And today, we won." He paused. "This victory belongs to all of us, Empire and human alike. We are no longer separate peoples. We are allies. We are friends. We are one." 3 months later, a memorial ceremony was held on the Empire's capital world. Beings from all species gathered to honor the fallen. Names were read. Stories were shared. Tears were shed by creatures with eyes and without. Captain Daehyun stood among the crowd, wearing a formal uniform he still wasn't comfortable with. Beside him, Lieutenant Hana, now Admiral Hana, watched the ceremony with quiet sadness. "We lost so many," she said softly. "We always do," Daehyun replied. "But this time, we saved even more." After the ceremony, the Empire Council convened. High Commander Velthar announced the formal incorporation of humanity into the Empire, not as subjects or refugees, but as equal partners and citizens. "Your people have proven their worth 1,000 times over," Velthar said to Daehyun. "The Empire is stronger with you. We would be honored if you would join our council." Daehyun accepted, becoming the first human representative in the Empire's 10,000-year history. Changes came quickly after that. The Empire's military was restructured, combining traditional Empire strength with human adaptability. Hana led the new Joint Defensive Fleet, training both species in combined tactics. Minho and Suman continued their work, now heading the Empire's revitalized research division. Tei became Hana's second-in-command, and together they built a military force unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Not just powerful, but flexible. Not just strong, but smart. Senator Vexmore, who had opposed the humans from the start, quietly retired from politics. Some said he left in shame. Others said he simply couldn't adapt to the new reality. The human colony ships, no longer needed as military vessels, were transformed into actual homes. Human families, tired from 3 generations of running, finally had places to settle. Children who had only known ship corridors ran through open spaces for the first time. Old Guri sat with his granddaughter on a grassy hill on one of the Empire's garden worlds. She was laughing, playing with alien children who had become her friends. "Grandfather, do you think we'll have to run again?" she asked during a quiet moment. Guri looked up at the sky, where both human and Empire ships patrolled together. "No, little one. I don't think so. I think we're finally home." 6 months after the battle, Daehyun stood on an observation deck with Velthar, looking out at the stars. Construction vessels moved through space nearby, building new hybrid ships that combined the best of both civilizations' technology. "Your people changed everything," Velthar said. "Before you arrived, the Empire was strong, but stagnant. We had forgotten how to grow, how to adapt. You gave us something too," Daehyun replied. "A home, a future, hope." "What will your people do now?" Velthar asked. "Now that you're no longer running?" Daehyun smiled. "We'll do what humans do best. Survive, adapt, build, and make sure no one else in this galaxy has to face annihilation alone." He looked at his friend. "The swarm is still out there, weakened, but not destroyed. They'll come back eventually, and when they do, we'll be ready. Together." Velthar nodded. Together. Below them, the Empire's capital city glowed with lights from 1,000 different species. Human restaurants served food beside alien markets. Children of different worlds played in shared parks. Engineers and scientists worked side by side, pushing the boundaries of knowledge forward. The galaxy had changed. An empire that had ruled for 10,000 years had learned humility. A species that had been running for 3 generations had found a home. And together, they had proven that unity was stronger than any enemy. Far out in deep space, the remnants of the swarm drifted, healing, adapting, preparing. They would return someday. But when they did, they would find something new waiting for them. Not an empire of comfort and tradition. Not a desperate refugee fleet fighting alone. But a civilization that had learned to combine strength with flexibility, power with adaptability, tradition with innovation. The swarm had awakened something in the galaxy, something that would ensure its own survival, no matter what came next. A partnership, an alliance, a friendship between species that had learned the most important lesson of all, that survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about being willing to change, to adapt, to stand together. The Empire had panicked when an unknown ship entered their space. They never imagined that ship carried not invaders, but saviors. Not enemies, but the beginning of a new era. And Captain Daehyun, looking out at the stars from his new home, smiled at the thought that somewhere out there, on the ruins of Earth, the last message humanity had sent before evacuating still broadcast into the void. "We will return, and we will not be alone."